All right. And welcome back to the next episode of the Mad Sopranos Man podcast. I'm Michael Dennis.
And I am Chris Brodhead.
We are I hesitate to say lifelong, but I feel like we've spent an entire life together. We are lifelong friends going all the way back to the first day of orientation in college, both film lovers, lovers of storytelling, and
And just lovers.
yes, and lovers as
And
well.
just
Uh,
plain lovers.
in this show, we're going to be taking a look at some of the broader themes, storytelling structures, and in this show, we're going to be taking a look at both Mad Men and The Sopranos. And we're not going to be doing a really granular scene by scene breakdown. We're going to be taking a look at a lot of the themes, structures, and storytelling elements that are present in both of these shows. And we're going to be doing that one episode at a time. And this is episode 3, I believe, for Mad Men, that is going to be episode 3, The Marriage of Figaro, and for The Sopranos, that is going to be Denial, Anger, Acceptance. If you're playing along at home. So, Chris, we're coming back after Thanksgiving. Did you have a good Thanksgiving, man?
Yeah, it was great. Ate a lot of turkey. And my mom was so excited to see us that I ate no leftovers because every meal was somewhere else. So I'm
Awesome.
I'm a
That's
little
cool.
bummed about my lack of
Yeah.
leftovers. But
Here's how my mom handled leftovers. So I stayed here close to home in Cincinnati, and we didn't travel anywhere. But my mom did the whole dinner and everything. And at the very end of the night, when she goes to give us leftovers to take home, she's like, "Just to give you a heads up, I made 2 turkeys this week." Because she got so upset because like between me and her brother just taking all the leftovers, she wasn't gonna have any. So she just
ah,
made 2 entire turkeys.
dude, why not?
And so when we walked out, we were walking out the front door, and she basically had the whole entire second turkey already cut up and bagged, and just like, "Here you go. Here's your other turkey."
Wow.
So,
That woman is setting a dangerous precedent here.
yeah, one that can never be, reached or
Yeah.
or matched. So, truly she will truly be missed when she is gone.
Well, she's in good health as far as I know, so hopefully that will
Yeah,
not be
yeah.
for some time.
We're doing good. She's been in great health ever since my dad died a few years ago, and she lost that 500-pound rock off of her back she was carrying around every day.
I
So,
shouldn't be laughing at that.
all good here in the dentist's house here in Northern Kentucky. But yeah, let's dive in to these 2 episodes. I think both of these episodes are really good. It
Mhm,
took me a little bit to kinda come up with some, themes that I noticed going across between the 2. But
mhm,
Chris, let me throw this over to you, man. Anything stand out in these episodes to you? What did you like? What did you not like?
mhm. I mean, as far as Mad Men went, was it the first mention of Dick Whitman?
Yes, yes. We are introduced in the very first scene to the mystery of Dick Whitman. He runs into somebody on
Yeah,
the train who he was in. I'm assuming the Air Force or the Army with.
yeah. These episodes, I felt that they were, both just great stories start to end, but I think their main purpose was fleshing out the world and further
Mhm.
developing these characters. Like, we're in this world. If the entire season is one movie, it's like a 3-act structure, then I think we're still in like solid first act territory, just kind of setting
Agreed.
the stage.
Yeah, we're
Um,
yeah, no, just to piggyback on what you just said right there. We're still being introduced to these worlds. I feel like just every episode it gets a little bit bigger, and we learn more about each characters. And so much of what Mad Men is, especially in the first season, is built around the mystery of who is Dick Whitman and how do you become Don Draper. And
mhm.
that's something that, hangs over the entire series all the way to the very end. And over on The Sopranos, in this episode, you're really getting a lot of Olivia pulling the strings for the first time. She kind of sanctions the hit on Brandon Falone, and does not sanction a hit on Christopher in this episode. So you really start to see for the first time Livia becoming the godmother. So these larger themes, these bigger character arcs are really being pushed to the forefront here in episode 3. Oh, we're also learning what a bad father Don is.
Oh, we'll definitely get into that. I
Yeah.
do wanna say, one unique thing of watching these shows back to back is it makes Don's talents with women more believable, and uh Tony's ability to get women far less believable.
Okay,
You're like, I
go on.
understand this man has power and, he's a force of nature, but like he's a fat, disgusting pig.
And he hasn't even gotten fat yet.
Yeah, he's just
He's just
like
doughy dad now at this
maybe
point.
I'm jumping ahead to other episodes, uh, but that's been the most glaring flaw
Yeah,
that watching these 2 shows in parallel has shown. It's just like all he's just an angry, sweaty, you can fucking smell him through
yeah,
the
you can
screen.
smell
You're
him
like,
through the
"Oh
screen. Yeah,
god," like,
yeah,
I so that's been very, very jarring and, insightful. I'm just like, this it makes you question the the greatness of the writing. You're like, "Oh, they're just writing this, like, sex in here to make it more interesting." Like,
yeah.
it's not really believable watching, like, Don, who's the most handsome, suave, charming person alive. You're like, like, I wanna do
Yeah,
that guy.
yeah, yeah. Don checks every box, and you get it straight off the bat. One thing I remember somebody saying about The Sopranos was it was the first television show or anything to show ugly people having sex,
Mm,
which I think it's I mean, think about Tony, and we get to season 2 with, like, Janice and, Richie and Ralphie, and then of course, we haven't even gotten to Vito, and all that down the road, but it was the first show to show, like, "Oh, here's some gross people, and they're gonna fuck each other." And and then presenting that, having just watched, the Sopranos episode last night, the only in this episode, we're reintroduced to his Russian Gumar, and he has that scene where he's with Herb, and then he gets the phone call and he has to leave to go help the boys assault the Jewish hotel owner.
mhm.
And when you talk about you being able to smell Tony through the screen, when they're having trouble with the Jewish hotel owner, he goes out into the stairwell and he sits down and he's in his bathrobe and like you said, he's sweaty and he's just sitting there and he calls Hesh. That's the scene in this episode where I can smell Tony through the screen. Like he was worked up, he was ready for sex, he was drinking a little bit during the day at the party, which Don also drinks at his party, like all day at
Yeah,
his party.
yeah,
So that's another parallel that I noticed here. But and he's been wrestling with this guy and he's in this hallway. That's the scene where I'm just like, that's where you smell Tony. Like he just
mhm.
it looks like a dirty, sweaty man there.
Yeah, and I wonder if, the commentary tracks shed light on this for Sopranos, like, do you think that's him method acting, or he's just so fat that he was sweating, or they
Yeah.
doused him with, like,
They
some
gave him the spray.
yeah, like,
Yeah,
that
to give him
has
an
to be
extra.
conscious, it's so pronounced and,
Yeah.
like, center framed, like, that
Yeah.
that
It's like The Rock's arm butter in, the Fast and the Furious movies, like, it's just so greased, like, there's gotta be somebody on the set who, in between every take, just comes on and just lubes up the arm butter to give him the full shine, and maybe it was the same
The
guy on
Rock's arm
Sopranos.
fluffer.
Yeah, yeah. It's like, "Alright, cut," and then the guy comes in and he's got the sprayer of just water, and they just hit him up real quick, just so
Yeah.
he's got the
But it's
just
like it's perfect. Like I don't know how you fake sweat that well. Like if you just
yeah,
spray someone, it just looks like they're wet. But like
yeah.
the placement
It's
and
coming, yeah, you can see it coming
it's
out of
like
his hair,
perfect.
like
Like it must be his.
yeah,
He must just
and that
get
would
out of
also
the sauna and run on the set.
and that would make sense too, like, if you're just sitting on the set under these lights and everything all day, and you're already doughy and sweaty to begin with, then
Yeah.
it would just amplify that.
Yeah. But I mean, and maybe they did this on purpose, but it seems like there's a ton of secondary characters who are fatter than Tony, and you
Yeah.
don't I have not noticed them sweating. Like,
Uh-huh.
maybe they're just not in the frame enough, but it
Yeah.
seems like, Tony, his kinda bulldog breathing where he's like,
Yeah.
that's like,
Yeah.
you can just get hints of it now. I know it gets much worse in later seasons. And just the sweat
Mhm.
is very
Um,
pronounced.
this reminds me, I in season 2, when we get to the, Scatino bust out, and there's the Robert Patrick, T-1000 comes in for the character of David Scatino, who's Tony's old high school friend who gets involved in everything. There's a scene when he starts kind of ducking and dodging Tony, where Tony shows up at his, uh,
S
sporting goods
Sporting goods
store
store, yeah.
and smacks him and beats him up really bad, and Tony looks, like you said, sweaty and awful, and I remember, Robert Patrick talking about how they did that shot in 1 take, and they did it first thing in the morning at, like, 6 AM one day, and that was the only thing Gandolfini was gonna shoot that day, and Gandolfini stayed out all night, drinking and partying, and so when he comes in and you see all that sweat and he looks disheveled, he is. So that is it method or this is just how the guy is? Like that
They're
falls
like,
right into it.
hey, Gandolfini, thanks for staying out all night drinking and smoking for the shoot this morning." He's like, "The what this morning?"
Yeah, yeah. It was like, huh? I thought I had the day off. No, no, go in there and slap the shit out of that guy. All right. I don't want to, but okay.
Dude, that's
Y-
just, that's 4D chess right there. Just only go out for roles that represent the lifestyle you wanna live, and then everyone calls
yeah.
you a method actor.
That to piggyback on that statement, I always thought like for me myself, that's why I love Pesci because I feel like Joe Pesci is just that.
Yeah.
Everything you see him in, he's the same character. That is Joe Pesci. Like he's just that guy, and he just gets roles where he's just the angry, violent guy who goes off
Mm,
on hilarious rants.
mhm.
That is he was typecast as that. I think he is that. I love him as that. But I remember being like, if I was ever gonna write a movie for myself, I would just write myself into it so I could and play to all my own strengths, just like Pesci. Go get an Oscar for it. I got an Oscar for Goodfellas. I'm pretty sure that's just him.
Yeah. Dude, have you heard, um, Louis CK's story about asking Joe Pesci to be in, some show that he wrote?
No, no.
Dude, do yourself a favor and, like, look it up after the show.
Okay.
He's like, "Yeah, I call up Joe Pesci," and Joe Pesci's like, "Listen, I'm not gonna do your show because it sucks. Second of all second of all, like, don't listen to the people, what they say about smoking. It's fine. It's not bad for you."
Well, he just goes right into that.
It's like, "What the fuck?"
Yeah, that's hilarious. Oh, you mentioned a second ago about, Tony having a bunch of fatter men, but don't nearly seem as sweaty.
Mhm.
So Tony's surrounded by a bunch of, like, fatter versions of him who aren't as successful, and then over on Mad Men, Don at work is surrounded by a bunch of other versions of him that also aren't as successful as him.
Yeah, they're not, like, as fully,
Yeah,
perfected as
yeah,
Don or Tony. Yeah.
exactly.
They're
Yeah,
not as fully, dialed in.
no. In honor of, Don drinking his 17 beers and stuff at, Sally's
That
birthday
was my
party.
favorite scene of the episode.
Yeah,
I'm just like,
where
"Yes, this is what
where
I
he's
would do in the '60s."
well, it's not just that, but, like, having hosted and gone to more than enough, like, kids stuff over the last year, it's like, "All right, I got nothing to do today except go to this kid's party. Whatever, let's just have at it." Like, who cares?
"Oh, I gotta build this fucking girl's mini house." Like, "Ah, count me in for at least a rack."
Yeah, there's, like, 4 scenes in a row where he either opens a new beer or, asks Sally or someone to bring him another one. And then there's, like, a scene where he doesn't drink, and then the next scene, he goes back into the house and the party, and he just, like, takes this giant mint julep and just like polishes that thing off. And then in classic, just drunk, bad dad fashion, he's like, "All right, I'm getting out of here. I gotta go." The
Yeah,
only thing he
that
didn't.
that must have been, they're like, "All right, what's, like, the darkest, like, fantasy that you have whenever you're, like, playing with your like, doing some family party thing?" You're like, "Well, just getting annihilated and disappearing for the rest of the day."
Yeah, just getting in my car and just leaving. "Well, where would you go?" "I don't know, sit in a parking lot and just listen to the radio." Like, I whatever, at least I'm not here. And that's basically what Don does.
Yeah, what okay, so I feel like to some extent, his reason for doing that is, it's obviously never fully explained. It's left to the audience. And my feeling is it's somewhat of a Rorschach test. Like, oh, I think he's leaving because X reason. Well, what's your
Yeah.
take on that?
I think that's a great way to look at it because Don does not let us know, and he doesn't tell us. We also don't, you know, as we talked about before, a lot of the scenes that Don has with other women in this episode, Rachel Menken especially, but also Midge, his regular little floozy, those are often his Melfi scenes where we get a bunch of where he spills his guts a little bit, and we as the audience are let known his position on something. Excuse me, but we never get that with this element that you're talking about where he leaves the party. And I think that's great because he never says anything and you are left to interpret why. Is he feeling bad because his marriage is loveless? Does he just not want to fucking be there? What is he going through here? And it's up to you to take a look at this and take a look at what we've seen from this man over now 2 episodes in episode 3, and what is this motivation and what causes him to just leave his daughter's party and never come back.
And he was supposed to get the cake. It's like,
Yeah.
that's an important part of a birthday party.
Yeah, yeah, and then the single mom down the road has to go get it.
Who everyone
Great.
hated and talked mad shit about.
Yeah, yeah. Um, getting back to, I wanna talk about some of the bigger themes that I noticed in these 2. Over on The Sopranos, paintings play a big role in this episode. Early on, Tony is in Melfi's office and he talks about the Rorschach painting that's,
Mm.
he sees his best friend Jackie in the painting. He has another conversation with his Gumar later on about the painting in her room. He talks with this is the first time we get a shot of the soprano bedroom, and we see that painting prominently um, showcased. Over on Mad Men in this episode, jewelry plays a continuing theme. We have a lot of talk about Pete's ring early on in the episode. Don talking about how men uh, of his age don't ever wear jewelry, and the whole back and forth with the cufflinks and Rachel Menken. But each of these episodes having some sort of physical object that our characters keep relating to and connecting to throughout the episode. I thought that was really interesting that they each had one. They each had a physical thing. I talked about the hidden meaning in the painting. Um, and all that stuff. The other little a couple other things I noticed between the 2 episodes. Each of them have a Jewish subplot where over
Mm.
on The Sopranos, we have everything with the hotel and Shlomo, and his son and everything right there, which by the way, like if you were gonna write something if you were gonna write something with a Jewish person who's heavy into money, whose name's Shlomo, like, isn't this just like a stereotype
Little on the
off
nose.
the charts? Literally on the nose. It
Slow.
could not be any harder.
Yeah,
And then over on Mad Men, you have everything with Rachel Menken and the Menken department store
yeah.
and um her heritage being brought up as well. So once again, they each have uh, a B plot that kind of touches on the same thing.
Is David Chase Jewish?
No, he's Italian.
Mm.
I don't,
Matt
I can't speak
Weiner
to like
Weiner
yeah, I
is,
can't
yeah.
speak to, you know, percentages. of David Chase, but I know from listening to a lot of the Talking Sopranos podcasts that they do reference him being Italian a lot. Each episode has an event at our main character's home. On The Sopranos, we have the entire plot line around the fundraiser and the Bucos hosting that and doing the food for it. And over on Mad Men, just like we talked about, we have the Sally party. So in each episode now, we're in episode 3, we're going into the homes to see even more of these characters. Um, like I said, I was surprised that they each had something that prevalent in
Mm,
each one.
mhm. There was another, Jewish reference, the the whole Volkswagen,
Oh
uh,
yeah,
ad. They're
yeah,
like, why would Jews wanna work with a German company?" Like, Roger was
yeah,
so perplexed.
yeah. That was a big part of it right there.
Yeah.
Um, but you see a lot of Tony dealing with his love of Jackie, and Tony loves his friend Jackie in the way that um, I think Christopher looks up to Tony. So it's interesting to see that develop. We really didn't get a lot of. I hate to jump back and forth. We really didn't get a lot of Roger in this episode. He just has the one scene, I think,
Mhm.
over on Mad Men, where they come in and do the brainstorm. But this felt to me like a very family heavy episode of Mad Men. I'm sorry, of Mad Men. But Sopranos still was really split between the two families.
Mhm. Yeah. This was the first, showing of Tony's Gumar, right?
We see
Or
her in
she?
the pilot,
Oh, that's right.
but only for but it's a different actress
Yeah.
entirely.
Yeah, we're me and my wife are a little further along in, Sopranos than the 3rd episode, and I swear every time we see the Gumar, it's a different actress.
Yeah. It's her from here on out.
Oh, it
It's
is?
the same
Okay.
one, yeah, through I think her last appearance is in season 4,
Yeah,
but it's the same one from here.
okay.
Yeah.
Well, Mad Men, there was a pronounced emphasis on infidelity, and it
Mhm.
seems like everyone's just kinda having fun with infidelity, and there's no consequences, and they're just like, "Oh, whatever, it's just like a thing you do, la, la, la,"
Yeah,
and
everyone's just trying to fuck each other.
yeah, yeah, like,
Even at the
blatantly.
parents' party, and it's, like, out in the
Yeah,
open, and
yeah, Don's, like, film everything Don filmed is, like, someone trying to cheat on their partner
yeah, yeah,
or talk shit in hopes of cheating on their partner,
yeah,
and
exactly, or
and there's
positioning yourself to later cheat on your
yeah,
partner.
planting some seeds.
Yeah, yeah,
And you're just like, "Oh, look at this, just a wild sex party." And even Peggy, when talking to Pete, and she probably isn't aware that she's pregnant yet, and we're not aware of it either. But, you know, because this is our rewatch, we're like, "Oh, she's pregnant as fuck right now."
mhm,
And it's like, even she's like, "Oh, no, that never," she's, being cool girl. She's like, "Oh, that what affair? What are you talking
yeah,
about?" And it's like,
yeah,
"Oh my god, all of this is going to explode."
yeah, and then I like, getting back to piggyback on that, there's the whole kinda subplot, or there's a scene or 2 where, um, Peggy is hanging out with Joan and the other girls in the break room, and they're
Yeah.
passing around just like some, dime store trashy novel, and they're all just really into it. Yeah, this is a very horned up episode of Mad Men.
Mm.
Everybody's just out to get it and is anxious to get it, and seeing the sharks circle in the water with the local single newly divorced mom at the Draper house too. And even Betty feels threatened by her. Betty steps in the middle and literally like doesn't want Don talking to her. So
Yeah.
she knows on some level,
Yeah.
this guy.
And she's a
How often?
redhead.
Yeah. How often do you think Don goes home? I mean, over the course of 5 days a week where he's at work and he has a natural out. How many of those nights do you think he doesn't go home?
I would say more than he does.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I would
Like
agree with that.
3. He goes home
Yeah,
twice a week, maybe?
yeah.
Yeah.
He
It's a
might
good
be stuck there
question.
on the weekends,
Yeah.
but
Oh,
I
maybe that's why
I
he drank 30 beers and disappeared. It's like, "Ah, fuck." I feel like, man, dads in the '60s were built different. Like, there's no doubt in my mind, like, a '60s dad could put away a 30 rack, like,
yeah,
drive, go get a cake, run other errands, and find a dog.
yeah. Well, this is also the era where if, assuming you didn't, drive your car into the front of Gimbel's department store and they pulled you over and you were drunk, they would just be like, all right, mister, you play it safe and go straight home, and either go straight home to your house or your mistress's house, but you make sure you get home right away, mister." So, I mean, just a totally different kind of world. Looking ahead, as every episode we've done so far, there are mirrors in both. And, we keep looking for this overall structure, and it's really starting to kind of play itself out. I haven't looked ahead, so I don't know how this works out. But in the back of my mind, knowing in a few episodes we have coming up the episode where Don has his flashback to Korea. We have the episode where Don has his flashback to when he was a kid and the hobo code,
Mhm.
and we also, on the other side, have the episode coming up where uh, Tony has the flashback and we learn about his dad. I wonder if both of those are going to be like the same episode in
Oh, shit. Yeah.
in the season. Like if
Mhm.
both of those are like the seventh episode, I'm not. I don't want to get ahead of myself and ruin this for me, but that's kind of where my head's at right now because we're starting to see stuff play out on both sides. And then
Yeah.
if they even if Weiner even took, he's like, all right, we did the flashback in episode 7. We're gonna do the flashback in episode 7 here. That maybe there is this, maybe there's a secret hidden code to this.
Well, that would lead me to believe that, that's why I feel the first season of Mad Men's writing is better than the first season of Sopranos writing.
Yeah.
Like, Sopranos was breaking new ground and creating a new template, and it's a bit more rough around the edges than
Mhm.
Mad Men. Mad Men already had the formula dialed in.
Yeah.
Maybe that
Yeah.
freed them up to, write better.
Yeah, that's a good point. You didn't have to concentrate so much on where the structure is and
Mhm.
where stuff goes in your, as you said a little while ago, in your 3 act, if your season is 3 acts and we're
Mhm.
still right smack dab in the middle of, act 1, or maybe kind of starting to wrap it up, then do they each place that flashback episode towards the end of act 2, which I'm starting to feel like they do. That
Yeah.
really feels right to me.
Yeah. Yeah. If not the exact same episode, then probably, like, within an episode
It's gotta be
each
close.
other.
It's gotta be
Yeah.
close. Just
Yeah.
in terms of vibe and everything. Just a couple more things. I thought it was interesting that the episode of The Sopranos is called "Denial, Anger, Acceptance." Based off of denial,
Mhm.
anger, bargaining. The 5 stages of grief. But we only get 3 of them. Tony only goes through 3 of them. Tony has 3 scenes with Melfi in this episode, and each scene is one of those emotions, and they're all about his buddy Jackie. Scene
Mhm.
1 is denial. He's like, "Oh, he's got a lovely head of hair. He's never gonna die. He's gonna scare that cancer out of him." The next one, he admits that Jackie isn't doing well, and Melfi will not conf- conf- comfort him and let him know, "Oh no, things are gonna be fine." She's like, "No, it sounds really bad," and he flips out and can't handle it. And the last scene he has with Melfi is acceptance. So I thought that was really great, just structure, and what a great way to write a character and show progress throughout the episode.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, that's a lot of layers there. The title just breaks down the entire structure of the episode.
Yeah.
Uh,
Okay, who's more fucked up in their respective episode? Is it Don and his 37 beers, or is it Meadow on a bunch of ecstasy?
well, the ecstasy is pre-fentanyl, so
Yeah.
and
God, ooh,
Don
it's gotta be smooth.
I was thinking about that the other day, like, this is how I know that we're in a simulation right now. We were born in such a perfect fucking time to where we could nonchalantly take any drug anywhere we wanted and be fine. You, like, walk past someone who, like, thought about doing coke and you die of a fentanyl overdose.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, this new generation, it sucks, and the generation before us sucked so bad,
Yeah. Yeah.
like,
We
we
we got a
got
nice little sweet spot.
so lucky. College was cheap for us.
Yeah.
College is 10 times the price than it was when we were there 20 years ago.
Yeah.
It's insanity.
Yeah. Oh, now we're starting to sound like Tony. It's like, things used to be great back then. We came in at the end. We came in like right at the end of the good time.
Yeah, and now AI is gonna take everything.
Yeah. Yeah. I hear that, man. Let me
Um, yeah, I did speaking of structure, one thing I noticed, maybe not so much in this episode, but just overall season, both of these seasons versus each other, is, they hadn't really dialed in the formula for Sopranos, and some
Mhm.
of the episodes play like villain of the week episodes,
Yeah.
and we'll get to those, and I'm sure Mad Men does this too, and I'm just too stupid to like realize it, but they definitely hide it better
Mhm.
than Sopranos. You know, they it seemed like they hadn't fully embraced like, no, the whole season is one story. They're like,
Yeah.
no, we gotta have something that challenges Tony that.
It's like as we've often talked about what drama was back in, late 90s, early 2000, just so much of it is this law and order world where everything is
X-Files.
yeah, everything is this one episode, and in a weird way, we just hit reset and go into next week, and like you said,
Mhm,
there's this villain of the week. So you're looking at season 3, or episode 3 of The Sopranos, and you're right, it's like they're still in that mindset of, "We have to have something happen in this episode that carries everyone through, that has something to work off of," to where later on in the series, you'll have episodes that are really good that people would talk about like nothing happens in them. Where
mhm,
it's literally just a whole bunch of character building scenes that have a theme or a through line through them. But if you were to add, kind of like we did in the last episode, if you were to ask someone at the end of watching that Sopranos episode, all right, what was the A plot and what was the B plot? It would be like, Tony's sad. Uh, Carmela's mad. Like that would be the only thing that you could kind of wrap your arms around,
mhm.
because they're all so, like I said, they're all just completely character driven scenes.
Yeah,
And we're trying to we're building all this stuff now because, as you said a little while ago, it's going to explode 2 episodes later, but we have to plant all this stuff
mhm.
here. And if we
Yeah,
try to wedge in a villain of the week, then there's no room for any of that.
mhm. Yeah, it just seemed like, some of these Soprano episodes, and obviously we'll get to them, there's no if you just skip that episode, there's nothing that you would really miss
Mhm.
out as insofar as, like, the plot development.
I think a hit is a hit coming up in a few episodes here in season 1. That is an episode where if you did not watch it, you wouldn't miss anything, because it's
Yeah,
all about Chris and Adriana, going into the music industry, and nothing really ever comes of it. And I still remember when I got where did it go? When I got the Sopranos DVD for the first time, and we were going through all the episodes and watching it with my parents, and looking ahead at all the titles, and one of the titles was "A Hit is a Hit," and you're like, "Ooh, this sounds like there's going to be some murder and this and that, and it's going to be intriguing." And it's literally like the most boring episode in the entire series, and nothing happens in it, and you could skip right through it. But yeah,
yeah,
we eventually get there.
yeah, yeah. Another similarity I noticed between these 2 episodes and just overarching theme between these 2 characters is Tony and Don's complete bafflement at their with their understanding of women and just having, like, no fucking idea other than how to sleep with them, like, how to get
Yeah.
women to love them.
Yeah.
I would argue that the real benefit Tony gets, from Melfi is a woman is nice to him. He's
Uh-huh.
like, "I will pay you to be nice to me." Like, his wife is always mean to him for good reason.
And he's
His
paying her, but she's not nice to him.
She's not nice to him. His daughter, doesn't approve anything he does. His Gumar is throwing shit at him and being mean to him. He doesn't
His
have
mom wants
any
him dead.
His mom is trying to kill him.
Yeah.
He's like, "I've tried everything." And he's like,
Mhm.
"Finally, I find, this woman who I just have to give her money. We don't even sleep together, and I get everything that I want." That's the
Yeah.
healing that he needs, and I think Don is the exact same way. His wife hates him. He gets attention from women. That I think that's why he, like, tried to kiss Rachel on the roof. I was like, "What the fuck are you doing, bro?" That's, like,
Mhm.
wildly inappropriate.
Yeah.
Bad for
Yeah,
your
and
career.
especially considering, like, what their relationship is to that point, and, you see where it goes later on, but, yeah, I was thinking about that earlier about also, what we have this relationship with Rachel Menken in season 1, and we don't see Rachel again for the rest of the series, but later on it comes back when he finds out she's dead, and he kind of looks at that as like this sliding doors moment for him. Coming up at the end of the season when Don begs her to run off with him and like leave everything, and then that really stays with him, and you almost I always almost viewed his love for Rachel Menken as just kind of desperate, and he didn't know where else to go, and he thought he was finally gonna get caught. So I was surprised later on in the series when he takes her death so hard and so personal. Um, but this reminds me of something I saw on Twitter the other day that I thought was funny, and it was like maybe this applies to Don too, and it said, "Get over a woman?" question mark, and it was like, "I've never gotten over any of my women, and even though you've had a bunch, it's like, I still can't believe she didn't love me." And you just go right down the line for every single one and say that, like, "I never got over her. I can't believe she didn't love me more, and her too, and her too, and her too."
Yeah.
And so maybe that has something
Yeah.
to do with it.
And then, to put a cherry on top of this, to put evidence to Don's complete bewilderment at what it takes to get women to love you, Rachel just kind of offhand mentions like, "Oh, getting a dog as a young girl was the greatest thing that's ever happened to me." And he's like, "Oh,
Yeah.
okay, cool." And then he shows up with a dog
Yeah.
for Sally. You're just like, he doesn't know what the fuck he's doing. This person just like randomly mentions this, and he's like, "Oh, I've ruined everything. I know this will save it."
Yeah, he takes that as gospel
Yeah.
and like a be all end all, like, fix it for him.
Mhm.
It's like, "Oh, this I heard one woman say she liked this. That means all women will like this." I wish in, like, the next episode he, like, show up at Midge's house with a dog, and then she throws it out the window just like the TV in the last episode, just, "I don't want this."
That's like the autistic version of Don.
Yeah, yeah. Everyone gets a dog. He's
Yeah.
fighting with Roger, and he just brings Roger a dog.
He's like, "Here's a dog. Sorry for
Yeah.
disappearing for 2 weeks."
He fights with the Nixon campaign people. "Sorry, Tricky Dick, here's a dog." But,
Yeah.
yeah, man, I think this is really interesting to watch these 2 in parallel
Yeah.
and
I
really see
I
how they
think
develop.
I mean, it's really great to, compare just like the nuts and bolts structure of this, but it's also very fun to compare these 2 characters and their, development or descent into, evil, I
Yeah,
guess.
yeah. Or just their own world. And if you
Yeah.
wanna define that as their own personal hell that they build for themselves. Although, look, it's almost hard to say that too, knowing where they both end up, because Tony ends up getting his brains blown out in front of his entire family in his
Yeah.
neighborhood, and Don ends up making the most successful ad of all time. So, and you can make that case that, Don that last season, Dick sheds everything that is Don. Like, he leaves his job, he sells his apartment, he's divorced now, he gives Megan a check, he says goodbye to um the kids, and you think that he's kind of done. And that's another reason why the finale kind of doesn't sit well with me, which we'll get to later on. But, Don gets rid of everything, and Dick gets rid of everything that is Don's, and he ends up just being Don. He's a consummate ad man, and that's you're left with that image that this is what he's going to be forever. And Tony's commitment to his world gets gets him destroyed. And I think, in the early episodes when we're starting to set the stage and Tony has the ducks and they're a representative of the family and the pool is the family, and he's worried about the bad thing that's going to cost him his family. The bad thing that's going to cost him his family is getting killed in front of them. That is
Mm.
that is the thing that's coming. That he knows is coming because he talks about it, but you don't even hear it come you never see it coming when it happens, right? As Bobby Bacala famously says in the final season. But, they both are fully committed to these lives, and they both end up in very different places.
Mm. Yeah. So would you say that Don ends up in a like a peaceful place?
No, because even though we last see him sitting on the cliffside and he's doing his yoga, and then we see the Coke commercial, he's still Don.
Mhm.
I think he still has this bottomless pit inside of him for, he even says in one later on in the series, he's like, what is happiness? It's just that period of time before you want more. And yeah, he's happy right then. He does that ad, and he clearly goes back to New York. He clearly goes back to the the big um conglomerate that buys Sterling Cooper in the end. But I feel like a month and a half later, he's still trying to bang a different cocktail waitress. He's
Mhm.
still I don't see a new Don Draper returning and then working through the 70s.
Yeah.
Yeah, does that make
I
sense?
I think you brought up a very interesting point. It I think you could make the case that both of these stories start to finish are a cycle.
Yeah,
It,
yeah,
it's you know, if you're not attached to the characters themselves and you're just talking about the life cycle of a mob boss and the life cycle of, the ultimate ad man, then these series are the birth,
mhm,
the creation
yeah,
of these two archetypes.
yeah. And as we
Yeah.
said, I think it's a literal birth in The Sopranos. The first shot you see is of Tony sitting in between the woman's legs of a statue. He is being birthed to us.
Yeah.
When we go to black, he dies to us. That is his cycle. And, not just to piggyback on what you just said right there, but it's not just like the life cycle of an ad man, but you could say it's a life cycle of a creative where it
Mhm.
is it is this. And yeah, I made this thing and it was really, really good. And, but that was a month ago. That was 2 months ago. Now I gotta go make it. Now I gotta go make something else that's really good. Now I gotta. Okay, I finished that, but now what am I gonna do next? And
Mhm.
that's Don too.
Well, there was a really telling line, at the end of Mad Men, I don't know, 2nd or last episode, maybe even, and, they're like, "Oh, Don's on the lam, he's disappeared, like, obviously his career's over," and someone's like, actually not, this happens pretty often," and
Yeah,
you're like, "Oh, okay, this is the ebb and flow of the creation of the ultimate ad man.
yeah,
This
yeah.
is how you get there. This is the path." You fucking go up. You
Just leave work and go bang some 19-year-old in California for a month and a half, and then you become the world's best ad man.
yeah,
That's how that works.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Hey, one last thing I've noticed about Sopranos. It seems like most of Tony's underlings or kind of like mini Tonys, they look much more Italian than Tony does.
Well,
I
as I
don't
said
know.
before, that was done on purpose, and as I said before, like, Tony and James Gandolfini, especially in these early episodes, looks just like my dad. We don't have
Yeah.
any Italian in us, and from interviews I've read or heard and stuff I've read, is that was a very conscious decision. That the guy who plays Richie Aprile and also the guy who plays Jackie in these episodes, they both auditioned for Tony, and neither one of them got it because they looked too Italian,
Mm,
and that they wanted Tony to look as inconspicuous as a mob boss and as this figure as they possibly could, and actually get away with it. So you're right about that. Where I mean, who looks more Italian than like Big Pussy
yeah,
and and and
and
um
Richie.
and Richie and Paulie? Like, I mean, who looks the part more than them? But then you get Tony in his slacks and his his crummy collared shirt with the funny pattern on it, and he just looks like my dad. Looks like my dad,
Yeah,
the special ed teacher from Northern Kentucky.
yeah, and I would argue Christopher doesn't look very Italian either.
I think he looks more Jewish than Italian,
Yeah, yeah.
and make of that what you will. But no, he doesn't. But compare him to like guy who plays Jackie Jr. in season 3, or some of the other characters around his age as the series goes on, or even like Meadow. They all look they all really look the part. And yeah, you're right. I don't think Chris isn't as on the nose
Mhm.
as some of the others are.
Did did they do that consciously to make it easier for anyone to, see Tony as their dad, or what was the
To make him as relatable as possible. That he
yeah.
was just the guy down the block, who who seemed somewhat unassuming,
Mhm.
um, but could have that underneath him and could have that boiling inside of him.
Yeah. Yeah, and he, went to high school with, like, other, normal people, like, he has non-Italian, like, friends and
Yeah,
family and associates.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, and he's the Hesh is, like, his surrogate dad as well,
yeah,
it seems.
and that carries on throughout the series. He
Yeah,
falls back on Hesh um, as a sounding board and almost like
yeah,
a second conciliary behind Syl, uh,
mhm.
as the series goes on.
Yeah, I would say Hesh is, like, I don't know, maybe my favorite character. He's just
I like
he's,
Hesh.
yeah, I guess he's the Alfred for Tony. He's just, like, the
Yeah, yeah,
more experienced.
yeah. He's been I like that he's not completely mobbed up. That he's got his music passed, and he's on the periphery a little. He's involved, but he's not elbows deep in it.
Mhm,
And I really like Hesh. I've always loved that character.
mhm. Yeah, awesome.
Uh, I don't have anything additional. I don't. Those are all my notes for this one. Oh, hold on. I do have it here at the very bottom. Don is pounding beers. Just well, I got this kid's party in an hour and a half. Better kill this 12er. Just a pyramid of cans. This is like 6-year-olds are walking in.
I'm always reminded of that scene in Sunny where where they walk in on Charlie, they, like, didn't invite him to something, and they walk in and
Yeah.
he's drank, like, 24 beers and
Uh
ate
huh.
2 large pizzas.
Yeah. And he's just like incoherent. Like, did you drink all that yourself? He's like, well, I wasn't gonna, but then I did.
Ugh, awesome.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right.
Any,
Another good episode, man.
yeah, that was awesome. It like my thoughts. I always come up with more thoughts hearing your perspective. So this is great.
Yeah. This is a lot of fun, man. Another good
Yeah.
episode. Join us next week. We'll be going in for episode 4 on each of them. But for now, thanks so much. Hit like, hit subscribe. This is the Mad Sopranos Men podcast. I'm Michael Dennis. This is Chris Brodhead, and thank you guys so much.
All right. Thanks, guys. See ya.
See you.